Hi, Joe here from SHUTTERSPEAK Photography. Very nice to see your smiling faces again here on YouTube. So, Skylum has just released Update 4 for Luminar AI. In Update 4, there's a new feature called Portrait Bokeh AI. So, in case you're not really familiar with what the term bokeh means, I'll give you the most typical scenario when you see bokeh is in a portrait, when you see the person very clearly and the background looks very soft, out of focus, blurry, kind of dreamy. That's what's called bokeh. So it's that soft, blurry, dreamy kind of background. That's the bokeh. So for photos that you've taken of people that don't have that soft, dreamy background, but you want to create that, this new tool, Portrait Bokeh AI, will help you with that. It uses intelligent masking to automatically find the person for your image and figure out what's in the background. So it works pretty well, and we're going to take a look at that. In addition to that, they've also added a new preview tool for textures, and they've added a precision horizon control within Sky AI, and a few other little features here and there, and some bug fixes as well for both Mac and PC. So we'll dive right into that. But before we do, I'd like to just say thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here, as always. And if anything in this video helps you out, please help me out by hitting that subscribe button and ring the bell so you get notified of future updates to this channel. It's a way of saying thank you to me for helping you out, and best of all, it's free. So I appreciate that in advance. Thank you. So let's dive right in and see what this new tool has to offer. Okay, so when you first start Luminar AI and you're prompted for the update, it's going to ask you if you want to back up your catalog, and I suggest that you say yes and you do that. And then it's going to want to upgrade your catalog, and of course you're going to need to let it do that as well. And then after that's completed, it's going to ask you if you want to update your plugins. So if you have Photoshop or Lightroom, it's going to ask you about updating those plugins, and of course you should do that. Once you've done that, and you want to play around with the new tools, well, the first one we're going to try out is, of course, Portrait Bokeh AI. So that's the new big feature in Update 4. And I've taken an image that I took at Photoshop World a couple of years back, and it's a pretty complex image, and that's why I like this image, because there's really a lot going on here. We have that kind of egg timer in the subject's hands. So he's got a lot of hair. He's got some weird stuff going on with some tubing coming out off his arm and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how the AI interprets this photo. So one of the things that's important to note about Portrait Bokeh AI is that it only works with people. It has to be a portrait. Okay, so it doesn't work on objects or animals. You can't draw it in. You can't paint it in. It needs a person in the image for this tool to activate. So the AI needs to recognize a person. If it does, the tool becomes available. If not, the tool will be grayed out. So if we click on the tool and expand it, the first slider that we see we can use, of course, is the amount slider. So as you start to move this slider to the right, you'll see everything else lights up. And after a couple of seconds, you'll see the background start to go blurry. Now, it does take a few seconds for it to create a 3D depth map. So the first time you open up an image, if it lags a little bit, that's okay. It's just creating that depth map. And once it's done, you'll see it kind of catch up. And it only does that once per image. So once it's done the first time, then this tool will work quickly, and you'll see the changes happen automatically. Now, I've already opened up this image, and I kind of know what's going to happen. Spoiler alert, it works pretty well. But it's just important to note that you might see a lag that first time, and that's okay. So one of the things I want to show you is, as soon as we take our mouse and we move over the image, it will automatically show us where the mask was created. So the AI went ahead and made this mask. And you can see it did a heck of a good job on a very complex image. Now, there are a few things that we would need to fix, but they're very minor. Okay, and so in fixing this, we have a few tools here. We have focus, defocus. We have a few tools for our brush control, and we can just brush in our changes. Now, Skylum has added some shortcuts as well, so we can use Same as in Photoshop and Lightroom, left and right bracket makes our brushes bigger and smaller. So using the left or right bracket key. Now holding Shift and left bracket or right bracket makes the brush harder or softer. And you can see the softness slider changing to the right there as I use the bracket keys. Okay, so I'll make it kind of a smaller brush. And now hitting X will focus or defocus. So that'll toggle us between focus and defocus. And you'll see the plus and minus, plus being areas we want to add to focus, minus being areas that we want out of focus. And then there's the slash key. That's the one that's underneath the question mark. If you hit that one, the mask will go away. Now the mask doesn't come back until you move the brush off and then back on again, and you'll see the mask again. So now I just need to really remove this area down here. So I'm just going to kind of paint this out. And Skylum tells us because of the depth mapping, you don't have to be incredibly precise, but I like to be precise anyway. I'm going to clean that edge up just slightly, and then let's get a really small brush and just get rid of some of this in here. You go real small, go up that way a little bit, and over here. And I mean, aside from that, like, I think it looks great. I mean, honestly, the AI really just nailed it there. And that's a pretty complex image. So we do have a few other tools now to further refine this. So let's bump this all the way up, 100%. And you can see that it seems to me that the top area here is a little more out of focus than the bottom area down here. And that's okay. So we have tools that can control the background. Okay, so the first tool is brightness, and this will make the background a little bit darker, which is kind of nice because it makes the subject now really pop out a little bit more. So you can do that if you'd like. You can make the highlights glow a little bit, so give a little bit of glow to the highlights if you wanted to. That's probably a little too much, but we could take it down a notch there. We can change the warmth of the background, so let's make the background a little bit warmer, or we could make it colder by adding blue. And you see how those changes take effect. So let's warm it up a little bit. I like those warm tones. Maybe that's a little too much. And now we also have depth correction and edge correction. So depth correction we can move all the way to the right, and that kind of shortens our depth. And if we move it all the way to the left, that's going to give us deeper depth. And now you see how everything's really blown out of focus now. We might want to even maybe just bring that up a little bit just so we have a little bit of recognition of what's behind the subject there. But again, you can see how that really just kind of nailed things. And then there's some correction for the edges. And I don't really think that we need any correction there, but that just kind of brings a little bit of you can see how it's kind of just changing, like sloppy masking there a little bit and just kind of fixing for that a little bit. So let's just bring the edges in and out a little bit, and that actually looks pretty good right about there. So aside from that, the AI just really worked wonders on this image, and let's try it with another one. We'll give it a slightly more complicated image for the next one, and we'll see how that does. Okay, so for this next image, you're probably wondering, all right, well, why is this one more complex than the previous one? Well, it's really the glasses on the table. Kind of spoiler alert there. And they're see-through, and in fairness, it's a little bit of a tough image. But let's click on it, and we'll pop in some bokeh right away and activate our controls. And you can see right off the bat, it really nails the subject. And if we just mask over, it does a great job. It even nails, for the most part, the glass in the foreground, and we can easily fix that. And you see with the depth mapping there, the whole front of the table actually is in focus, and that's probably correct and probably the way it should be. So it really nails the depth in this image fairly well, with the exception of the candles and that second glass that's right over here. And that kind of gets a little bit lost. And that's okay, and we see a little bit of funkiness kind of on this edge there, a little bit of a halo there. But for the most part, it's really nailed it, and we can brush in some corrections. So let's use the left bracket, and we'll make this a nice small brush, and we'll use the right bracket, left bracket shift rather, and make it a little bit harder. And I'm just going to have to make that a little bit smaller, I think, and just brush in the rest of this glass. Now, probably one of the easier ways of doing this is take the bokeh out. Well, you need to put it in a little bit, so and even we just move it up to, like 2 or 4. Now we can see exactly where the glass is, and we can work on it a little bit easier. I'm going to hit X, toggle X to remove, so we get rid of some of that weirdness there that we didn't want. Toggle X again, bring things back. And now let's paint in this glass, because we definitely want this glass in focus, right? And let's grab that candle as well. We'll just kind of slowly paint in that candle. And I'm going to make the brush a little bit bigger now. And all of this already was in focus, this area. Let's just get this in here. And let's take a look and see how that does now. So as we bring it up, now you can see it's done a pretty good job on the glass, but the edge of the candle, even though the mask is pretty tight on there, it's throwing a little bit of a halo around that candle. So I've played around with this a little bit, and we'll see what we can do in terms of with edge correction and things like that. So again, one of the nice things is being able just to darken that background a little bit if you want to, or you can make it brighter if you wanted to. I mean, the slider works both ways, right? So we can darken that a little bit if we really want her to pop, or we can just leave it. If we want to add a little glow in there to our highlights, that's always nice, right? Warm up that background maybe a little bit if we wanted to. So now let's work on the edge correction first, and let's see what we can do with correcting the edge, especially around that candle. So as we pull it in, you can see there's a little bit of correction there, but not, let's go the opposite way. There is a little bit of refinement, and now let's work on the depth. So that seems to make things worse. Let's go the other way. And that actually does pull the candle back in. Right there. Let's see if we can fix that. And that's not bad, right? So let's see now how much we can go with that, and bring that a little bit back. And as we bring it back, you see we do get that halo back a little bit if we really pull up a lot of bokeh into the image. So it has a little bit of a rough time with this one. I think the edge correction is a little bit important because it does pull the edges back a little bit. So you see with let's just take a look with very little edge correction. The edges are a little bit sharp, and we can soften that out a little bit. It seems to look a little bit better as we bring that down a little bit, just a little bit of a softer edge in the bokeh rather than a sharper edge. Now we can play with this a little bit. We can try and feather in a real soft brush, a little bit of extra, and we'll see if that helps a little bit just around that edge to help it get detected a little bit better. Let's see if that makes any difference. And right there, yep, that seems to be the trick, just a little bit of extra to help it find that edge. And that cleans it up fairly well. So, not bad. So, let's see what happens if we pull the depth back a little bit now. And if we go too far back, we start to get that halo. But somewhere right around here or so seems to be the sweet spot. Let's see if we can get that halo to disappear again. I guess not. It seems to have come back for good. But hey, it's a complex image. A little bit of weirdness there. And a little bit of weirdness here. We can fix that easily, though. Let's see how that cleans up. And yep, that pulls that edge right back in. And that hardens off that edge pretty nicely. And they tell us you don't have to be incredibly accurate because of the depth mapping. And you can see how that works here, even when we feathered it in. Let's give it a little bit more of a feather here. And let's just see. Because Skylum does tell us we don't need to be incredibly accurate because of the depth mapping. And there we go. All right, that kind of nailed it. Let's fix up this edge right here. And there we go. All right, so we were able to clean that up nicely, and this image looks fantastic. So the AI really worked wonders there. Again, we can darken up that background if we wanted to. We got the whole table in focus. We got both glasses, which was tricky, but we were able to do it pretty quickly. We got that kind of weirdness around the candle fixed up by just giving a little bit of an extra feathered in edge for the AI to help detect that edge and clean it up. And we scaled back the edge correction a little bit to soften up a little bit the edges of the model, and she looks pretty natural in there and pretty good. So overall, I'm very happy with this. I think the AI worked really well. Okay, so with this image, there's a lot going on. So we have kind of a crooked or tilted horizon line. We have some hills on the right side. We got some lower ground on the left, and it's not necessarily even to the horizon the way this photo was taken, although the people seem to be kind of straight, I guess we call it, right? But we also kind of have a dull sky as well. And a few other things that would make the AI in this kind of go crazy. There's the white shirt that kind of blends into the cloud color of the woman, and that teal color, which could confuse the AI a little bit with sky color. So there's a lot going on here. But the most important part of Sky AI for this image is this new Precision Horizon Control tool. So let's first select the sky, and I think maybe we will go with a sunset. Let's take sunset 1, and we'll put that in there. And that's not bad, it's okay, but you see we have a little bit of weirdness with the shirts and the hair of the woman, but we'll get to fixing all of that. First, the thing that I want to show you is in the Sky Orientation tool, there's a button that's called Horizon Position, and we can now take this and place the sky at precisely where the horizon is. We can move this up right about there, and this is also going to help you place your reflections in the water, but this isn't a good candidate for a water reflection. But once we do that, just hit the button, and that places it. I just want to show you also before we do that, we can also change the angle of the horizon as well. So more realistically, and that's probably a pretty good level for it, right around somewhere around there, and we've placed our sky. Okay, we do have a little bit of cleaning up now, of course, to do because the AI has left a little bit of haloing around our subjects, but we'll fix that. Of course, we can change the vertical position of the sky. Let's just reset that. And the horizontal position, we can move it left to right. Maybe let's move it over to here. That's maybe even a little bit more interesting. Right over here somewhere. And of course, you can flip it left to right. That's not bad either. Actually, I think I even like it a little bit like that. So, either way, I can't make up my mind. Next section, of course, is the mask refinement, and we're going to use this a little bit to kind of clean things up here with this shirt. So let's make some global refinements and see if the tool will close those details up in the clothing. And let's see if closing the gaps, that does help a little bit in the hair, actually pretty significantly there. And let's see if we can fix the details a little bit. And we're looking better already. Okay, so we can, of course, change the lighting and the relighting, and actually that looks kind of nice. Kind of brought up the glass here in the front. We can change the saturation, but relighting a human is going to be important here. So we're going to relight the human, and that should help us out a lot with this hair. And there you go. So we brought that up, and you see how it really nailed all the hair in here. So I'm just going to show you the difference. See the halos around here, and then we bring this up, relight human, and you see how that's now all corrected. That really made a big difference. And of course, we can change the saturation a little bit if we wanted to. Now, this isn't a great candidate for reflection, and so I'm not really going to go too much into the reflection tool here for this image. We'll look at that more in the next one. The most important thing is I wanted to show you, which we did, we created that level for the horizon, and of course we used this relight human tool to really nail down the gaps in the hair and things like that, and that really worked very, very well. Now, if we wanted to defocus the sky, of course, we could add a little bit of blur to that background sky, a little bit of grain if we wanted to. Of course, we'd still add in haze if we want a little bit of haze, atmospheric haze in the photo, which I don't really think does much for this photo. If we did, we'd add it in just a little bit, right? And of course, we can change the warmth and brightness. But the big tool here is being able to place that position and drag it out to exactly where our horizon levels are. And we'll see how that works in our next example, which is going to be a water example. Okay, so in this example, we have a nice scenic lake with some kind of gently rolling hills to the left and right, and the sky is, of course, just blank. It's boring. So I'm going to show you two different examples of this. So first, let's go over here to Sky AI, and let's start with a nighttime. We're going to completely change this into a nighttime photo. So let's go and we'll take a look at Starry Night, and I'm going to select Starry Night 2. And now we have that in there. First thing that we're going to need to do is use this horizon position. And now this is really a great example of how this horizon position works. You see the horizon is wrong, and you can see that gap in there. I'm just going to bring it right down to the waterline. And now we're going to expand it up, right, to the top of the hills there. Okay, and that is what's also going to control exactly where your reflection starts. And so just with that much alone, we've completely changed the whole image from a boring daytime shot to this spectacular nighttime image. And we've precisely placed the location of the sky in the horizon. And we could go ahead and, of course, we can do more with the relighting and saturation and things like that. But I'm going to now change this up again into something different so you can see how the horizon tool works with a kind of a cloudy sky, which will give us a better example of how the reflections work. Okay, so let's take the same image and we'll go a different route with it. Okay, let's go over to our sky selection. And let's see, how about bright blue? Because it is a bright blue sky. We'll take this one. That looks good. And again, first thing we want to do is start with that positioning. And right at the waterline, that's our horizon. And we drag this up to where the top of those hills are. You can even go up a little further if you wanted to. And you'll see, just by hitting the button here, that'll set that. And you see how it creates that base reflection for us right away. Of course, we still have all the same controls with the vertical and horizontal and the ability to flip. We don't really need to close any gaps because using that horizon tool has really nailed it for us. And of course, we can do a little extra relighting if we felt like it needed it. Maybe a little extra saturation in there. We don't have a human, so not sure exactly what relight human would do in this situation. Doesn't look like it does much. And now let's take a look at the reflection amount. So we should be able to add a lot more reflection into here now if that's something that we wanted to do. And of course, once you do that, we want to add in a little bit of water blur as well, maybe even a little bit more. Make it look a little bit softer, that reflection in the water there. And then, of course, we have all the other tools that we normally would have. And you can see how we were able to just, again, using that horizon control, really nail exactly where the reflections should be in this image. So that works really, really well. And then, of course, we can still go crazy here and go into, our object selection and, do whatever craziness, that we wanted to in this image. Although I don't think that that's something that I probably really would want to do, but, point is, you could if you wanted to, right? So it's all there for you, and it works well. And most of all, like I said, we were able really just to nail this reflection right away by using that precision horizon control. Okay, so with Update 4, we have improved textures with a visual preview as well. So you can use a JPEG or a PNG file, and the way to add a texture to a photo, and you can also use this as well for a custom designed signature file if you had one of those already made. You, of course, would need to have a transparent background if that's what you wanted, but you could use that for a signature file. But let's just go over how to use a texture. So the first thing you're going to do is just go over to the paintbrush, the local masking tool, click on Add, and select Texture. And now the interface will come up, and you'll be able to see a preview of all your different textures. Just pick the one that you want. Let's take this one here, and you can see how it's automatically applied. If I didn't like that one and I wanted to change it, I could do that and get an idea of what it looks like in advance. If I like it, all I need to do is, of course, hit Place Texture, and I can change around where the texture is placed in the image. If I like it in the default location, that's fine. I could flip it. I could horizontally flip it as well as vertically flip it, and I can lower or increase the opacity to whatever I want it to be. Okay, so if I liked it something like, let's say something like that, that's really all I need to do. I can go into the advanced tool as well, and I can change the blending mode. Typically, the blending mode is going to be the way it should be, but as you see, as we run through the blend modes, you'll see how it does change how the texture appears on the screen. So maybe I like it like this with overlaid and giving it that very super high contrast look, or something along those lines. Not every blending mode is going to work, but screen actually does work pretty well for this, and we do still have control over contrast and brightness, saturation, and even to some extent the hue, and changing the color of the textures that we're placing into the image. And maybe we want them to blend, maybe that blends in a little bit better in that color scheme, and maybe bring it down just a little bit, and you're done. And so that's some of the improvements that we're now seeing in templates, and they work pretty well. Being able to visualize everything like that in the templates is pretty effective. And then, of course, we can go in and continue to add additional layers, and add layers on top of layers if we wanted to. And of course, we have a button down here at the bottom that will pop us over to Skylum, where we could purchase more textures if we so desire. So that's the new texture tool. So, of course, with textures, you also have the ability to bring in your own textures into photos. So to do that, just select Textures, and where it says All Textures here, go down to Custom, and you'll see this little plus sign, and that will help you navigate to a folder where you can add your own textures. Just select it and hit Open. I've already done that. So you see my texture is there already. And now I can just drop it onto the interface there, and it's been placed. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do when you bring in your own texture, and this is a JPEG, is change the blend mode. So it's set by default to normal, and generally overlay works well for most textures, but sometimes screen works well. And you can go through these and see which ones you like the best, but overlay works for most choices, and then you can kind of change the opacity. Of course, you can flip it horizontally or vertically. You can change the contrast, saturation, the hue of these overlays. Maybe I liked it like that. And additionally, when you use the Place tool, you can also change the orientation and the sizing of it as well. So maybe I wanted it to be horizontal and maybe a little bit smaller. So let's shrink this down a little bit, make it smaller, and we're going to rotate it in. And let's put it in the corner there, and we'll rotate it straight, and let's bring it in this way. And we need to make it a little bit bigger here, and that's pretty good. And there we go. That's kind of close enough, right? So, oops, maybe not. Almost close enough. A little bit bigger there. And there you have it. So just hit Place Texture again, and it's now locked into place. So you can kind of, like I said, flip it however you wanted it. Maybe you want to flip it vertically, horizontally, Maybe you want to, like I said, just kind of using the place tool, drag it around to where you want it to be. And you have all these controls, of course. So a nice change to the textures interface, especially allowing us to have that visual preview. So there you have it. So that's what's new with textures. So if you're new to Luminar AI and you're thinking about purchasing to coincide with the release of Update 4, Skylum is offering a sale on Luminar AI. So right now, a single seat, so in other words, one license, a license for one computer only, is $47. A two-seat license, meaning you can install it on two computers, and one can be a Mac and one can be a PC, or however you want to split those two up, is $59. That's 40% off. In addition to that, you can get an extra $10 off by using the code SHUTTERSPEAK, and there'll be a link to Skylum in the video description. It is an affiliate link, so if you do click on it, I get a couple of pennies here and there from them, and that does help me make more videos and things like that, so I appreciate it if you click on those links. Thank you for that. Other things that are on sale: Aurora HDR, $59. Great HDR program. I love it. Probably the best one that I've ever used. Membership in Luminar X, which is a subscription-based product. It's a one-year subscription. It's $59, and that gives you sky packs, template packs, instructional videos, textures, things like that that are released monthly. It's actually, I think it's really worth it. If you're going to purchase one or two sky packs, the X membership is the way to go. Elements of Light, Perfect Portrait Pack, Amazing Animals, Great American Landscape Pack, all on sale, 50% off, all $9 each. And an additional free bonus for every order. No matter what you order, you're going to get a free bonus, the Love Celebration Pack and the Summertime Pack. So sale starts July 20th and ends August 4th. So go ahead and click on the link in that video description for that. Thanks. One other thing I'd like to throw out there also, we have a really great Facebook group, a Luminar AI users group that you're welcome to join. I'm going to include a link in the video description to the Facebook group as well. It's a pretty strong and growing community of Luminar AI users, and it's just a great place to learn and share your work. So link in the video description for that as well. Okay, so that's the overview of what's new with this update, but as well as those items, there's still some bug fixes and enhancements. I'd like to go over them with you really quick. So we have in macOS and Windows, they're basically almost the same list of fixes, but in macOS, open and edit in Luminar AI as photos for macOS, extensions without errors, that's a fix. Add transparent PNG textures to your photos without encountering artifacts. View the custom textures that load right away, even upon leaving and returning to the texture overlay. Find the controls for placing sky objects and textures in the correct location instead of the bottom left corner of your photo. Crop a photo in Composition AI to a small ratio using Sky AI or Augmented Sky AI without a hitch. Smoothly work with masking in Show Mask mode and use the Shift bracket, left bracket, right bracket hotkeys to smoothly adjust the softness slider in masking mode. And in Windows, the fixes: add transparent PNG textures to your photos without encountering artifacts. Luminar AI as a Photoshop or Lightroom plugin, and see the right side template and edit tabs without a hitch. Enjoy better disk space optimization. Export files in a RAW format without experiencing crashing. Worked in Augmented Sky AI, and Atmosphere AI without experiencing memory leaks and crashes. There's a big one. Open templates created in Luminar AI on a Mac OS system, and export multiple photos while retaining the original resolution. So those are the list of fixes and tweaks for both Mac OS and the Windows operating system. So that's Update 4 in a nutshell. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment. I do answer probably 90 to 95% of all the comments. If you follow this channel, you know I usually answer almost everyone. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate you. If anything helped you in this video, please help me by just hitting that subscribe button. It's free and it'll make me happy. So thanks for that, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye, YouTube. I'll see you next time.